technical knowledge. In this movie, I will explain you what all basic technical knowledge a functional consultant requires it for a successful Oracle functional career. As you could see out here, you would appreciate the fact that a functional consultant is someone who is like a middleman between the business users and technical developers. Hence, the functional consultant should be able to understand the business language, and then if required, he should be able to translate that to the technical developers, and vice versa. So if there is a technical solution given by the technical consultant, he should be able to translate that back in the business terminology and should be able to communicate that to the business users. So that that's something that you really need to build over time. All right. The second thing that you may require as far as the technical knowledge goes is a knowledge of SQL. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. Now it's a language that helps you to retrieve the data from the database. Okay. Now, why a functional consultant requires the knowledge of SQL? It's basically required for troubleshooting functional issues, or while you're implementing something is not working, then you need to go back from the back end to see where the data is stuck. Similarly, if some transaction is coming out in error, or some transaction is not proceeding in the business process flow, you might want to investigate the real root cause. That's where a little knowledge of SQL is required to query from the database, retrieve the data through the SQL from database tables. That's where I have written the second point, that you should be able to write simple to moderate SQL statements. It's very easy to learn. Okay, let's just show you an example. Let's just show. Go to my desktop here. Hold on. Let's just exit this one. Yeah, if I go to my desktop, okay, now what is this? This was nothing but SQL developer. Okay, SQL developer is something that helps to write your SQL statement and retrieve the data in a graphical user format so that it's very easy to read. So what you need to do it is, in order to retrieve the data from database, you need to first connect to the database, and that's exactly what I'm doing it now, to connect to the database. Okay, so look at this. I'll just connect it, and now after connecting, I'm coming out to this GUI, and that's where you write your SQL. SQL is nothing but you write your query using SQL language, okay, to retrieve the data from the database. For instance, if I have to retrieve all my users from the database, there is a table called as FND user. So I write select star from FND. Look, this SQL developer also automatically gets the tables from the database, so you really don't need to remember all the table names. You can simply select it like this and then choose this and run the query, and that's where what will happen, it will list down the data from the database, and that you can quickly go and check, whatever the case may be. You can simply go and find out the data that you're looking for to troubleshoot a functional issue. That's where you need to have a knowledge of SQL. So what I've written out here is the most simplest SQL you would have ever seen, but what you need to know is a little bit more than that SQL knowledge. All right, so that's where you need to learn about SQL. You can easily learn yourself. You really don't need much of a training on this, and there are loads of documentation on internet, or Oracle provides documentation. You can use that to learn SQL very quickly. So one of the tools of executing the SQL which I just shown you was SQL developer. Similarly, there is another tool, is called as Toad. Okay, it looks just pretty much similar to what we saw in SQL developer, and that's also a graphical user interface it provides to retrieve the data from the database. All right. Basically, these tools helps to simply expedite your search and investigation to troubleshoot an issue uh, using, of course, these tools. All right. Now, the final point I've written is learn how to browse tables and columns to search for data. Now, what I meant was not this easy learning what I've just shown you out here, that the table and then you can simply browse it like this, which is true for this SQL statement. But sometimes you need to write complex SQL statement which can include more than one table. It could be two table or three table or four table or five table, a little medium, which includes joins between the tables. So you need to know which columns to pick up, which columns to search, and which columns to look after in your search results. So that's where you need to have a knowledge of how to browse the tables and columns in each of these tables and how to go about searching specific data. All right. And then finally, this I guess I've already explained you, is you need to learn the basics of Oracle workflow, processes involved, notifications, etc. Okay, a workflow, what I've done is I've just pulled out a workflow from the backend. I will just show you out here. This is a workflow that is for what, purchase order approval. So as you could see out here, it's nothing but like a flow chart. You can see start and then compare text and remove all. So what you can see the entire process flow out here. As you could see how the process is running, and when you click on each of these process, you can actually go down and see the details of each of these process flow. So for instance, this is a specific function, and what is this specific function, what is it doing? So it details you out here. Okay, what's the status of that, what's the whether any notification has been sent or not, and so on. So the point I'm trying to say is you need to have a knowledge of these workflows so as to successfully understand and implement and troubleshoot a specific functional modules. All right. So basically, a list of all the workflows can be found in the front end in Oracle applications, but you can also see these workflows through the front end. When you go to each of these or when you go to each of the modules, it's got a function out there through which you can see the workflow. For instance, if you go to purchasing module, let me go to purchasing module, and if I go to purchase orders, purchase order summary, and I say some purchase order, say some purchase order I'm pulling. Okay, when you go here and you say inquire, you've got an option to view approval through workflow, and when you click on that, that's what it will retrieve, this workflow. So you can go, sometimes what happens is the workflow gets stuck at some point of time, say here, then this line will be shown as red, or nothing will be shown beyond this, and then the error will be shown at the bottom out here. So that's where you will know what's the exact issue. Look at the status, sometimes it shows status as error, and it will give you the detailed error out here. So that's the reason you need to have a knowledge of the workflow. But if there are any errors out here in the workflow, you need to consult your technical team that can help to troubleshoot that error. All right. Then one thing which I have not listed out here is also very important, is you should know how to search or find solutions for functional issues through the internet. Now the best source for that is Oracle support website, which is at support.oracle.com. So you need to have an access to that website, and when you go there, and give your search criteria, it will pull out the potential hits matching the search that you have given, and using that you can easily find out the solution, and you can try that incrementally until you find your solution. If you're unable to do that, you can always go back to your technical team to help you further. So that's another thing that you need to have. All right, so that's in a summary. At a very high level, a functional consultant need to have these kind of technical knowledge. In the next movie, I will give you some tips as to how you should go about hunting for a job once you have learned Oracle applications.